A developer, an admin, and a consultant walk into a bar.
Oh, this is going to be bad.
Bartender looks up and says, "Hey, what is this, a user group?"
That's not funny.
Well, let's see you try to write a joke at the last minute due to lack of listener submissions.
It's still not funny.
Fine. A developer, an admin, and a consultant walk into the bar. The bartender looks up and says, "Ow, that has got to hurt."
It's still not funny.
They literally walked into the bar instead of figuring
I got it. It's not. But it was a bartender. It's no, Brian. Bad.
Fine.
Bad.
Fine. Hi, I'm Brian, the Salesforce Wizard.
And I'm Mark, Salesforce Yoda.
Welcome to the Wizard News WizardCast. This is a podcast on all things Salesforce, but more importantly, it's a podcast where we sound stupid.
It's educational and entertainment. It's edutainment.
Welcome to our 7th full episode of the WizardCast, the Force.com Awakens. That's 7 episodes without Parker Harris and 7 episodes with Star Wars puns as titles.
Oh, thank goodness they're making that new movie then.
Yeah, unfortunately, episode 8 of the WizardCast is going to have to wait until they make a movie after The Force Awakens.
Why?
Because we'll be out of Star Wars puns.
Do you mean to tell me that this is the last podcast episode until 2016 or 2017 when they announced the new movie?
Yep.
We're just gonna wait a couple years.
Yep.
I think you're losing sight of the bigger picture, Brian.
Think so?
How about this? Let's come up with a name that doesn't have Star Wars in it. Brian, you still there?
You're kidding, right?
Just trust me on this one, okay?
Okay. Mark, are you fat? Because I know I am. That's why I'm joining the Dreamforce 15 Health and Weight Loss Challenge.
That was a terrible way to introduce this. My feelings are a bit hurt.
So if you want a group of people to encourage you on your health goals, and which could include losing some weight,
or just exercising some more,
go to the Success Community for Salesforce and join the DF15 Health and Weight Loss Challenge. There's a registration form to join, and post what your goals are.
We'll post a link to the group in the show notes.
I joined the group with my own weight loss goal of 20 pounds, which happens to be the same goal for Andy Betcher, Bill Greenhall, and Mike Martin.
And Bill is the one who started this group 2 years ago.
Yep. So the 4 of us have decided on a friendly
motivational incentive?
Yeah, it's definitely not a bet. The person who loses the most weight will be treated by breakfast at Dreamforce by the other not quite winners,
otherwise known as losers.
Plus, they'll be interviewed on the WizardCast.
I will be officiating in my role as weight loss not bet commissioner and make sure it's a clean and healthy challenge for all.
So go join the group and join the fun, and stay tuned to listen how Bill Greenhall, Andy Betcher, and Mike Martin lose. The gauntlet has been thrown down, gentlemen.
Shots fired. Shots fired. Brian, why are you boxing up Girl Scout cookies in those shipping containers?
No reason. Do you happen to know Bill's, Mike's, or Andy's shipping address? Our guest this episode is from Bracket Labs.
They are the guys that make the awesome App Exchange app, TaskRay.
He's a co-founder of Bracket Labs, a Salesforce MVP, and an all-around great guy. So let's give a big WizardCast woohoo for Eric Wu.
Woo! Woohoo!
Hi, Eric.
Hi, guys.
So thank you for joining us on the WizardCast on such short notice. So first off, why don't you tell us, what the heck is Bracket Labs?
Sure. So Bracket Labs is a 5-year-old Salesforce ISV partner. And I think ISV is actually a really confusing term. So think of us as a 5-year-old Salesforce app partner.
What does ISV stand for, first off, for people who might not know?
You talk to 5 different people and 5 different definitions of the I. So independent is how I think about it, like independent software vendor. It's an old school term. I think it's probably back from the 80s. But essentially what it means is we build apps for the Salesforce platform that we then sell to Salesforce customers. And we are kind of unique in that we focus entirely on native apps, which means that our stuff, installs and runs inside of our customer's Salesforce instance without any interaction with, an outside server, outside services in general, which ends up being a really big deal when you talk to some Salesforce customers who are very sensitive about where their data is and how it might be moving around. A native application means that everything stays self-contained.
No
so that's
proprietary plugins or anything like that.
Exactly.
Just runs normally.
We're not, sending a query that grabs Salesforce data and takes it to another server, et cetera. So, we sell through the App Exchange. As you mentioned, we're the makers of TaskRay, which is the top project management app in the App Exchange. We also have a couple other apps, Campaign Calendar, that's for marketing teams that use campaigns. My Day, that's for people who really want to streamline and improve how they're working with the native activities, tasks and events. So those apps are out there as well. But TaskRay really has been our most successful app. It's growing the company. It's growing by leaps and bounds in general, and it's also where we focus a lot of our product development.
So you said Bracket Labs is 5 years old, right?
Yep, 5 years old next week.
Did you experience having to deal with the toddler tantrums that typically come when it hits like 2 and 3?
Startups are a little bit different in that it starts really, really hard, and then gets a little bit easier. Let's say around 2 or 3. So rather than terrible 2s, that's actually when it starts to get easier. So I would say the terrible 0s are the hardest part.
There is kind of from my experience, you do start to hit it again around the 5, 6, 7. So just be careful there. That's coming.
So we're headed for more hard, tough sledding, right?
The move from small to medium that's a real growing pain problem. Have you started to hit that medium slope yet?
Sure. So about a year ago was the first time we really started kind of growing the team. And, whereas it used to be a couple people sitting together and just kind of putting our brains together and just working around the clock to get things done, when you start building your team out, there's new things that you have to think about that you never thought about before. So, how do we get a workspace that's conducive to people that really need to concentrate on writing code, while at the same time somebody's standing right next to them talking on a customer demo all day, right? Like that it didn't come into play 4 years ago, and now it's something that we are actively having to think through and manage. So there's all sorts of new things that come about as you grow, and we're nearly 800 customers today, and the concerns about operations and managing and helping 800 customers are totally different than when we had 8 customers, right? So you invest in new systems, you have to change the way you were doing things. So all those things are constantly shifting. I read a great article the other day that talked about whatever you were doing 3 months ago, if you're still doing it, you're probably doing it wrong today. And you can guess whatever you're doing today should be different in 3 months, or else you have messed that up as well, right? So
I'm doing everything wrong then, Mark.
Well, I'm doing something different every day. It's not always right. So does that automatically make me better?
Yes.
It means that you're doing things wrong but rightly.
Okay. All right, we'll go with that. That'll assuage my guilty conscience. So what is it, Eric, that you would say that you do? Exactly.
Do you take the requirements from...
What's your day-to-day?
Yeah, so my day-to-day has kind of fallen into something that I never would have expected in my career, like where I am handling sales. And this is the first sales role that I've ever had. I'm an engineer by training. I'm a product guy my entire career. I was the product.
How you got started as engineering? Like, did you build TaskRay or whatever your first product was?
No, I didn't. I'm a mechanical engineer by training. So Yeah, if TaskRay required some nuts and bolts, I could have done it, but you definitely don't want me writing code.
Should we be expecting a robotic version of TaskRay in the future?
The Internet of Things is coming, yeah. That'd be pretty cool.
Yes, it would.
Yeah, but day to day, I do sales, I do business development. As one of the founders, I wear a lot of different hats in terms of just making sure the company is getting everything it needs. But as one of the founders of a small team, that also means, I'm the guy that takes out the trash when it needs to be done. I'm the guy that sweeps the floor when it needs to get done. So,
shouldn't you hire a housekeeper or something? I mean,
I was going to say, I'm trying to figure out which are literal, which are figurative terms here. First, can you describe what the hats look like? Are they baseball caps? Fedoras?
They all are suited to the job. So that janitor hat happens quite a bit. But
you must hate flu season.
You know what I hate the most? The hardest thing is navigating insurance benefits, because we don't have dedicated HR, and that's a world that is ripe for innovation. I'll say it that way.
So would you recommend that there's an ISV out there who's trying to figure out what to do? You should say go in and do a disruptive HR app.
Oh yeah. And we've already started to see it. So Zenefits is one that comes to mind, but there's a bunch of people who are trying to essentially take everything we've learned about the modern web and the modern user experience of working with services and apply it to the benefits industry, which has had this boom after the Obamacare. There's a lot of activity and interest and growth happening there, but at the same time, boy, it's hard to navigate. It's like entering a labyrinth.
So, Eric, what do you think are the 5 main skills or qualities that you have that have made you good at what you do, at being a co-founder of an ISV?
Yeah, let's start with because you can split that 2 different ways. So the 5 main qualities that make you good at being an ISV, and the 5 main qualities that make you good at being a startup.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to say before I even talk about that list, that I think it's radically different for everybody, right? So my list is probably not the same for any of your audience listening who are thinking about why they might want to become an ISV or even do their own startup. One of the things that's always a rule of thumb for entrepreneurship is like the big thing you have to be comfortable with is change, right? But other than that, my strengths may not be your strengths, and you could be an awesome entrepreneur. I think what's important for me in being a founder and being an effective founder really comes down to I'm very good at learning new things. And that's a constant in our industry in general, right? All of us have to be adapting to new technology that shows up regularly. But for an entrepreneur, it's even more. Like I said, I've never done sales in my life, and now I spend all day doing sales. I had to go learn that enough to be effective and grow the business, right? So a fundamental one for me is like I can pick up a lot of things relatively easily. Kind of along with that, I'm somebody who loves to think about ideas and how things work. And so particular to my startup, we're always kind of trying to think about what's in the future, what's evolving in our marketplace. And, as a Salesforce partner, you can count on Salesforce always pushing the envelope, right? Where they're always marching forward with new technology, with new initiatives that they're thinking about. And so as long as we can kind of meet them in the middle, right, that also means that it forces us to always be thinking about that. But it also means you have to be comfortable with constant change. You can imagine people whose jobs haven't changed much in the last 10 years being very uncomfortable in that environment. So that's another one that I think is probably a strength for us. Tied in there, kind of deep in there, is just kind of a fascination with business and how it works. That's always kind of made me a little different than my engineering cohort, that I graduated with as a mechanical engineer. Is a lot of people just didn't care about how marketing worked or completely dismissed marketing as, those are the people who are, lying to our customers. That's
marketeering, right?
Yeah.
Marketeering. You're making up.
I have to admit, as a young engineer, that was my take as well. But over the course of my career, I've kind of shifted to believe marketing is everything. Like marketing drives so much about what's going on. Marketing drives product. Marketing drives engineering. Like good marketing really is the difference between a company succeeding or failing. And that's hard to appreciate sometimes when, you're an engineer or you're very technically focused and you don't understand or even care about the business elements. So that's something that for me, I think ended up being a strength for this company.
So essentially, name recognition directly correlates to growth. And if you're not growing as a company, then you're not succeeding.
Yeah, but even think about it even before that. Like, what are you going to build, right? You guys probably have all experienced products that were built by an engineer to solve an engineer's problem and fell flat on their face when they got handed to somebody who wasn't an engineer, right? Like I would argue marketing was what was missing there. Yeah. Even understanding the problem, right? Like the world as experienced by engineers, those problems look very different than the world that's experienced by, your average person who's not technically minded. The problems look different. And so marketing is really how you understand, hey, what are the problems that, number one, are worth solving? And number two, the right way to solve them in a way that, will be applicable beyond engineers. Now, that's different if you were building like GitHub, right? GitHub doesn't need to solve for, the average person out in the world. But even GitHub had to understand their market really well, right? And that came from a solid grounding in marketing. So that's kind of how I shifted. I remember the first day of business school, I got in an argument with a marketing professor who started by saying marketing is everything. And I said, no. You don't get to market anything unless you have engineers to build it. And by the end of that semester, I had changed my tune. And now
let me get this straight. So you went from if you build it, they will market to now going from if you market, someone will build it.
Yep. That's exactly right.
It's true.
I'm not taking anything away. Like, absolutely it has to be built right. Like I want the best engineers possible working with me, right? But if marketing doesn't define what is to be built, then you run a high risk of building something that nobody wants.
So let's talk about that then. I don't want to out any particular products that maybe you're developing and you're trying to keep on the DL or anything like that, but how do you decide where next to go with your company and what is essentially your career at the same time?
Sure. And this actually, that's a nice segue into the other list you asked about. Like, how do you be a successful ISV, right? Like, I think the only way to do it right is to listen very closely to your customers. And again, I would consider that marketing, right? But it's also a value. It's also a skill. It's also, for us, what drives us every day. Like, if you asked me or any of the founders of our company, like the thing that gives us the biggest thrill is when we really delight a customer, right? And if you start there, how am I going to delight this customer? It kind of leads to, well, what is about my product that they love and they, causes them to decide to pay for it, but also where can I take it further to just add that much more extra, dazzle to it, to solve their problems a little bit more, to deliver even more value to them than they're already getting today. And so that kind of drives how we think about it. Now, buried inside of that is a really hard problem, right? Like, think about, again, that customer who thinks that they know what they want, but they don't actually know. And so when they describe to you the feature that they wish your product had, really the trick is asking them about the pain that they're trying to solve, right? Because if they knew exactly the right feature, then they would be building the product. Instead, what you need to find out is what is that customer's pain that they think they're going to solve with that feature, because it may be right what they're asking for the solution-wise, or it may be completely wrong, right? And there's that classic, maybe apocryphal thing from Henry Ford about, like, if I asked everybody what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse for my carriage, right? Like, you never would have had the car if you were asking carriage customers what features they needed on their carriages. So there's a trick inside of that. And that's another, as a product person for most of my career, it's something that I had to learn the hard way through lots of different products, but essentially the ability to say no, listen embrace, love your customer, and listen for their pain and solve it, while at the same time telling them no for the silly things that they're asking for that, they don't really want.
That's a great corollary for admins and developers that are out there and listening to this podcast. I don't know about you, Mark, but I've actually gotten asked to have a required checkbox on a page layout.
Yeah, I've had some pretty ridiculous requests.
Yep.
So that's an example of a customer, or in this case, an end user saying, this is what I need, but it doesn't address the actual pain that they're experiencing. So you have to be comfortable in saying no, and then follow up with, well, tell me, why did you want the required checkbox?
Right. It doesn't take any, think about it from a parenting point of view, right? We're all parents. Saying no to your child doesn't make you love them any less, right? And in fact, sometimes it's required for their best interests to say no to get them on the right path, right?
I'm finding more often than not sometimes.
Yeah.
It depends on the age, I think.
Yeah. Well.
But yeah, we love our customers, and I think, if you look at not just us, if you look at anybody in the Salesforce app partner world who people rave about, right? And I think about Conga all the time. Like, if you talk to Conga customers, they rave about Conga. And part of that is it's a great product. But the other part of it is Conga loves their customers. Conga goes out of their way to embrace and hold those customers close.
Yeah, they're extremely service-minded.
Yeah, and we've modeled ourselves in the same way, right? We have the benefit of Conga being next door neighbors. They're 10 minutes away from us. And so we can look at their playbook and say, oh gosh, we should be doing the exact same things, right? But I think that's a huge advantage for anybody who takes that approach into the Salesforce app world, because a lot of times you're talking to Salesforce customers that also are going to be your customers who run the gamut in terms of their expertise in Salesforce. So, somebody who's a brand new Salesforce customer could really benefit from me talking through how an object works, or talking through how they're going to make simple field customizations on an object. Whereas, they could always go learn it, but me being able to educate them on that is me giving them a little bit of love. And in return, they understand, hey, we're here for you and we're going to take care of you. And by the way, we're also Salesforce experts.
So let me try to sum this up, Eric, and let me know if I got the gist of it.
All right.
So you should feel comfortable telling people no, yet you want to explore and make sure that you understand where the pain is so you can hopefully address it. And essentially, you want to show love and kindness to your customers and basically treat them like your children.
Yes. I mean, my children... my children are maybe not as sophisticated as some of my customers. But yeah, essentially, holding them close and wanting only the best for them, wanting their success.
So you hear the end users, you're all getting a timeout because you did not enter your opportunity data incorrectly.
That being said, don't think that the reverse applies. Don't treat your children like customers. That could be a problem.
Yeah, my kids would not be able to pay me much.
Yeah, it would be a pretty poor return on investment value. Let's finalize up here with, you probably do this all the time already, Eric. I think you mentioned doing it, but if you had someone that came up to you and said, Eric, I'm thinking of starting up my own company, or I'm thinking of becoming an ISV, I think I have a product idea. In 2 sentences or less, what would your recommendation be for them on how to get started?
2 sentences or less. Wow.
Okay, 5 sentences or less.
But that's our final offer.
So this is advice that isn't even specific to an ISV inside the Salesforce ecosystem, right? Anybody thinking about a startup, I would emphasize talking to potential customers. Right? Like, you're going to hear a lot of advice around entrepreneurship for building a business plan. Even before you build your business plan, you already have some ideas. Get them written down, and then go talk to people. And that's particularly for those of us who are more technical minded. That can sound pretty scary. Like going out and talking to those customers before you even have anything to show them, before you even have anything that you have finalized, right? But talking to those customers and listening for that pain, and listening for what it is that you think you're solving, and if they actually would pay for you to solve it for them, is critical in my mind to avoiding the startup that fails, right? Like, you have to start with, what do those customers need, and why is it important for them to be able to get it solved? as the basis for your business plan. So go out and talk to people. And, the lean startup movement has it boiled down to get out of the office. It's not enough to email with them. It's not enough to run a survey. You have to get face-to-face with them, ideally in their offices, in their environment, to see what it is they're doing every day, to understand, kind of those hidden things that maybe they can't even articulate that they're suffering, right? A great example from TaskRay is, we put in our latest release a change that reduces one click by changing the date on a task. We cut it down by one click. We reduced one click, but that's 50% savings. And immediately when our early testers on that release got it, they started raving about it. What a simple change that radically changed their experience. Those are the sorts of things that people can't say, gosh, I wish I were clicking once instead of twice. Like, they don't know enough to say that, but they also know subconsciously, gosh, this is annoying. I bet it could be easier, right? So if you go to your customer's office and you sit with them and you listen to what they're doing, a lot of times you're going to pick up on things that they don't even know are bugging them. And then you solve it in a really elegant way and knock their socks off. That's a successful business.
That was an incredibly long 5-sentence. But
I know.
I had a big cup of coffee before I got on the call with you guys. So yeah, that's another one for entrepreneurs, right? Like, before I started Bracket Labs, I probably had 3 cups of coffee a week. Now it's 3 cups of coffee a day, easily. So caffeine probably is another key to being a successful entrepreneur.
I could be a bad entrepreneur then.
Insert caffeine, receive profit.
Yep.
That's a great business plan. All right, Eric. So I think that's it for the interview. Thank you very much. It's now time for the segment that shall not be named.
This is where we ask wait, I thought we had a name for it.
So last episode, we started with wanting to know how people got introduced to Salesforce. And we're back again asking the question.
But we already had a name.
We do a podcast together.
Good.
And we're working on a new series of stories that we're calling...
We're not calling it anything.
Oh, that's true. We haven't come up with a name yet. But we're asking everyone a simple question, and we're hoping you'll be willing to give us a very serious answer.
Yeah. So, just
nervous.
be forewarned.
Don't be nervous.
We know ahead of time this is very serious, it's very personal.
Maybe sensitive.
Very sensitive, intimate. That's fine, but we want to ask you, what was your first time like? With Salesforce.
My first time with Salesforce, we met at work, and I was a little unsure at first, Salesforce kind of came on strong, and it intimidated me, I'm not going to lie. I never thought that I could be with something like Salesforce,
Was it something you expected to find in a workplace?
Not at the nonprofit I was working at, no. Definitely not. And
you never know with some of those nonprofits. That can be...
Right. And you just don't really know what to trust. And, over time, Salesforce kind of allowed me to develop that trust. And, through the course of that, I think we built a really strong relationship. And so the first time I felt comfortable logging in, it was magic. It was absolute magic. And that was I can tell you that was the moment that I fell in love with the platform, is when I went into that setup menu and I just expanded those options one by one.
You didn't have any problems with verification whatsoever?
None.
You just knew?
I just knew. It was a match made in heaven. So as soon as I created my first custom fields, my first workflow, I knew that it was a lock. I said, Salesforce, I am in you.
Thank you so much, Becky. So in the last episode, when we premiered the segment which shall not be named, we asked listeners to submit a title for the segment which shall not be named.
Oh, you asked listeners. We had a name already, but
you didn't want to have it called Wiz Questions. You mocked me, sir. You mocked me.
Well, Ryan Headley did suggest. Oh God, I can't believe I'm going to say this. Inquisition. Inquisition, whiz, is...
It's punny, but that's not easy to say.
No, it's not. So if you have a suggestion for the segment, which shall not be named, email us at thewizardcast@thewizardnews.com.
Or we'll just continue calling it this segment, which shall not be named, and confuse people.
I still like my name.
What was your name?
I don't remember. Now it's time for a Salesforce video of the undetermined amount of time until the next one.
This episode, we're going to feature another Dreamforce session. It's an oldie but a goodie, and one that is paired at multiple Dreamforces. Is it Dreamforces or Dreamforce-I?
That is an answer I suspect only Mark Benioff knows, and he's not telling. Regardless, the session is called Formula Ninjas, and if you haven't seen one of these, you're missing out.
It's basically, essentially, for anyone learning formulas or just wanting to pick up a few tricks to round out their skills. It stars MVPs Deepa Patel, Francis Pindar, James Garfield, and the ever-illustrious and probably constantly sauced... Oh, come on, Steve Wallace. No, we're not going to say he's constantly sauced. He's asking for beer. He's not necessarily drinking the whole thing all at once. Steve, we apologize. Please still come on our podcast.
Regardless, if you've seen this session or video already, good for you. And frankly, you have no one to blame but yourself.
What? Why?
Because no one sent us any suggestions for videos. So if you have a suggestion for Salesforce videos, tips, or jokes, email us at thewizardcast@thewizardnews.com.
Or simply go to thewizardnews.com and select Contact WizardCast.
Brian, are we asking too much of people? We keep saying, send us stuff. Well, shouldn't we be doing the work ourselves?
I believe in having a collaborative community. I mean, that's kind of what Salesforce is all about, right? We have the chatter, we have Twitter, we have the success community. It's all about building as a community a sense of humor and lifestyle. And if we're the ones providing all the content, then we're the ones defining that community. I don't think that's fair to the, other people that make up the community.
Okay. You make your excuses sound very democratic. I can go with that.
That's great. God, glad I thought that out of my... Okay. Mark, what are you doing on July 9th and 10th?
Actually, I am going to be speaking at the Midwest Dreamin' event in Chicago.
Hey, me too. I hear Peter Coffey, the VP of Strategic Research, is going to be one of the presenters.
Anytime you have a chance to hear him speak, that's definitely worth it. And so will Dan Darcy, the Senior Vice President of WOWA?
That's what it said on his LinkedIn. WW.
WOWA Product Readiness. Worldwide.
I have no idea.
I'm guessing worldwide. Worldwide product readiness.
That would make sense. We should ask him.
We will do that. We'll let you listeners know.
Yes. Dan, please tweet us. Dan was the man behind all the demos at the press Dreamforce keynotes, right?
That's right. That's him.
Yeah. I wonder if there's anyone else speaking besides them and us.
Well, it is a pretty big event, Brian. There's over 30 speakers for the breakout sessions.
And if you get bored of hearing people present, you can go to the expo hall and try to get some swag from the vendors.
Swag. Overall, it'll be a great place for meeting people and networking.
Swag. So stop listening to us and go register for Midwest Streaming.
Right now. Stop listening?
Don't stop.
Okay,
don't stop listening to us. Wait until the podcast is done and you're out of your car or wherever, wherever you're listening to. Get out of your desk, then come back to your desk and then go register.
Then you go to MidwestDreamin.com. That's Dreamin' with no G, even if you're OG.
What the heck does that even mean?
You don't know what? You're not hip, are you, Brian? You're not with it.
I'm a guy that walks around with a wizard hat. How hip do you think I can be?
It's hip to be square, Brian. Apparently, you're just not trying hard enough.
We hope to see you there.
Mm-hmm.
So what did we learn today, Mark?
Well, Brian, I learned... maybe I should think of something.
Yeah. See? See? I have something because I learned something during the course of making this particular podcast episode. For example, I learned from Eric Wu, and I completely forgot what I just learned. That's terrible. No,
apparently
that's not true. I had it.
Anything.
I did it. I wanted to write it down. I learned from Eric Wu about the importance of talking to your customers to determine what you should do. And those customers could be actual customers if you're selling a product. They could be your end users if you're an admin. Or, they could be management, other administrators. But go talk to people and find out not just what they were asking for, but what do they really need? What's the underlying problem?
Right. And I learned that sometimes your co-host needs to be pulled off the Star Wars train and, forced into a bit of reality.
I think this is really not fair considering the fact that you're Salesforce Yoda, so you should be the one that's stuck on the whole Star Wars.
I know, it's ironic, isn't it?
Don't you think? WizardCast is produced by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, directed by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, technical administration by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, script writing by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, audio editing by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, website maintenance by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, Tickle Monster Titillation by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, and our intern this episode was Bracket Labs.
A whole company was our intern this time, apparently. Send us your interview suggestions, jokes, videos, tips, and feedback to wizardcast@thewizardnews.com, or head over to thewizardnews.com and click Contact WizardCast.
Yeah, I'm going to have to talk to Bracket Labs because neither one of us has gotten our beverages yet. It's been hours, days even.
I've been waiting.
Yeah, we've been waiting forever. Don't forget to subscribe to the WizardCast and receive our next episode automagically. Once again, I'm Brian.
And I'm Mark.
Thanks for listening. What were you going to say?
No, I was going to say, once again, I'm Brian.
Don't forget to sub. What's up?
Studio.
Well, I mean, you could take a cue from radio shows, like the key to humor is repetition. Just keep using the same jokes.
The key to humor is repetition?
Yeah. When it comes to radio shows, right? Like
the key to humor is repetition.
Exactly.
Sure.
The key to humor is repetition.
Yeah, sure.
Key to humor is repetition.
Yeah, sure. Woo!